I stepped into the grand ballroom of the Pinewood Resort and immediately wished I hadn't come. Chandeliers dripped crystal light across marble floors, and wealth whispered through the room in hushed tones of respect. Nathan's hand found the small of my back, steadying me with the gentle pressure of his palm. "Breathe," he whispered, his surgeon's eyes assessing me with clinical precision. "We earned our place here." Oliver tugged at his bow tie, his 5-year-old patience already wearing thin. "Mom, this thing is trying to choke me." I knelt, adjusting the offending fabric with a smile. "Just for a little while, buddy. Remember our deal. Behavior now. Swimming pool after the reception." The crowd parted briefly, and my heart stopped. A familiar profile caught my eye, the slight tilt of her head, the way she leaned forward when she laughed. I hadn't seen that gesture in 10 years, but my body remembered it instantly. The bride turned, champagne glass raised in a toast, and our eyes locked across the room. Emily, my sister. The champagne flute trembled slightly in my hand, the only outward sign of the earthquake happening inside me. I hadn't recognized the name David Thompson in the invitation. I hadn't made the connection. I'd assumed Emily was still using our family name, Bennett. Her gasp cut through the ambient conversation like a blade. Heads turned. The music continued, but a bubble of silence formed around us, stretching across the divide. Behind her, Mother's face drained of color, then flushed crimson. Father moved protectively toward Emily, his broad shoulders creating a barrier between us, just as he'd done all our lives. "What are you doing here?" Mother hissed loud enough that nearby guests turned with curious eyes. The familiar shame rose in my throat for a heartbeat. I was 19 again, standing in the rain with a suitcase, homeless and alone. Nathan stepped forward, his voice firm but measured. "My wife is a guest. She's the CEO of Health Tech." We were personally invited by the groom. The name Health Tech rippled through the cluster of medical professionals nearby. I heard whispers, saw recognition dawn in their eyes. CEO. A woman in a burgundy dress turned to her companion. "That's Sophia Bennett." The rain soaked through my thin jacket as Father's words echoed in my memory. "If you're too ungrateful to help at the clinic, don't come back." The slam of our front door punctuated his sentence, final as a judge's gavel. Now I stood straight-backed in Valentino. The rain a distant memory. The scared girl was gone. In her place stood a woman who built something from nothing, who refused to disappear. Dr. David Thompson approached, confusion creasing his brow. His gaze darted between Emily's frozen face and my composed one. "You know the CEO of Health Tech?" He directed this question to my parents, then turned to me with growing interest. "We've been trying to partner with them for months. Your patient monitoring system is revolutionizing post-surgical care." Emily attempted a smile, but it faltered at the edges. Mother and Father exchanged glances loaded with panic. The whispers among the wedding guests grew louder, more insistent. I could make a scene. I could expose 10 years of lies. I could tell David how they told everyone I'd failed out of college, how they'd painted me as irresponsible while pocketing my tuition money for Emily's benefit. The power was finally mine. Instead, I simply said, "Hello, Emily, congratulations." The simplicity landed like a thunderclap. Emily flinched as if I'd shouted. Nathan's hand returned to my back, a silent question. "Stay or go?" Oliver looked up at me, innocent to the undercurrents swirling around us. "Mom, is that lady in the white dress your friend?" David's gaze sharpened. He looked between Emily and me, his new bride, and the stranger who clearly wasn't a stranger. Emily. His voice carried confusion and the first notes of suspicion. I thought you said your sister was. His voice trailed off, the unfinished sentence hanging between us. Emily's eyes darted frantically between her new husband and her parents. For the first time in my life, I watched her struggle for words. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately regretted it? The smart move would be to grab my family and quietly slip away. Let Emily have her perfect day. Let sleeping dogs lie. But sometimes regret is just fear wearing a mask, and I stopped being afraid a long time ago. And this is my wife, Emily. David beamed, his arm sliding around her waist. Harvard graduate and the brilliant mind managing her family's medical practice back in Connecticut. I stood 10 feet away, my champagne untouched, watching my sister nod demurely as she was introduced to a cluster of doctors. Her pearl earrings caught the light when she tilted her head. A gesture I recognized from childhood. A tell when she was about to stretch the truth. The Bennett Clinic has been serving our community for 30 years, she said, voice pitched perfectly between pride and humility. We specialize in family medicine with some geriatric care. Nathan touched my elbow, drawing my attention to the conversation unfolding beside us. A silver-haired woman in an elegant pantsuit, my name badge, Health Tech. Her eyes widened. You're Sophia Bennett. Your presentation at last month's medical summit was brilliant. The patient monitoring system you've developed is changing post-surgical recovery protocols across 3 states now. 4, actually, I smiled. We just finalized implementation with Rush University's hospital network. Across the room, Emily fumbled through a response about platelet therapy trends. The doctor questioning her exchanged a subtle glance with his colleague. I thought Harvard's medical program had shifted away from that approach 3 years ago, he said, brow furrowed. Emily's laugh floated a pitch too high. Well, you know how these academic debates go. Some professors hold on to traditional methodologies longer than others. David's expression shifted almost imperceptibly, tightening around the eyes, a slight withdrawal of his arm from her waist. He was noticing the discrepancy. Sophia, the voice behind me, belonged to my father. 10 years older, but unmistakable. The same commanding tone that once sent me scurrying to answer phones at the clinic after school, while Emily practiced piano. You need to leave, he said, positioning himself between me and the rest of the room. You're ruining Emily's day. Nathan stiffened beside me, but I placed a steadying hand on his arm. I was invited by David, I replied, my voice low but firm. Perhaps you should explain why that upsets you. Father's face reddened. The expensive suit he wore couldn't disguise the man beneath. A small-town doctor whose authority stopped at the borders of his own practice. Don't play innocent. You showing up like this, flaunting your whatever company you claim to run. Health tech is hardly a claim. Nathan stepped forward, every inch the Yale-trained surgeon. The Medical Technology Conference in Atlanta last month featured your daughter as the keynote speaker. Her monitoring systems are in 27 hospitals nationwide. A nearby guest turned at this, clearly recognizing the company name. Across the room, my mother hovered near Emily, desperately trying to steer David's colleagues away from my direction, her hands fluttering like panicked birds. Too late. The connections were already forming throughout the room. Medical professionals recognizing my name, making associations. Oliver tugged at my hand. "Mom, can I have some cake now? You promised." "In a minute, sweetheart." Oliver looked past me, eyes fixed on Emily. "Is that lady your sister? Does she go to Harvard like you did?" Father's face drained of color. Before he could respond, Oliver continued innocently. "You showed me your old college pictures. The red buildings were pretty." Emily had drifted closer, David beside her. Her face froze at Oliver's words. "Harvard?" David said, looking between us. "You went to Harvard too, Sophia." "Class of 2016, I answered simply. David's colleague, a distinguished cardiologist based on his conversation, turned to David. "You didn't mention your wife's sister was Sophia Bennett. Her work on predictive algorithms for post-surgical complications is revolutionary. Rush Medical has reduced readmission rates by 22% using her systems." The weight of 10 years of lies settled visibly on Emily's shoulders. She reached for David's arm, but he stepped slightly away, his attention now fully on the professional conversation happening around me. Rain drummed against my dorm window as I stared at the bank statement. The numbers not computing. My college fund depleted, transferred to an account I didn't recognize. The same day, a package arrived from Emily of photos of her spring break in Cancun, the trip I couldn't understand how our family could afford. I shook off the memory, focusing on the present. David had pulled Emily aside, their heated whispers visible from across the ballroom. His face reflected growing confusion, then disbelief, then something harder as she clutched at his sleeve. "You told me you graduated from Harvard," he said, voice rising just enough to carry. "I went there. I've never heard your name mentioned by any of the faculty." Emily's response came frantically. It was mostly remote learning, a special program they had, for Harvard Medicine doesn't offer remote degrees. David's voice had gone cold, never has. Color drained from Emily's face as she realized her carefully constructed life was beginning to collapse. Her eyes darted around the room, landing on mine with desperation. David stepped back from her, straightened his tie, and turned. With deliberate steps, he walked across the ballroom away from Emily, directly toward me. Behind him, Emily's pleading eyes followed. A drowning woman watching her last lifeline walk away. David guided me away from the crowd with a gentle hand on my elbow. His fingers trembled slightly against my skin, the only indication that the poised doctor was rattled. "Let's find somewhere quieter," he said, his voice steady, but his eyes darting back to where Emily stood with my parents, their heads bent together in urgent conversation. We settled in a small alcove at the edge of the ballroom, 2 plush chairs, a small table between us. The muted lighting cast shadows across his face, highlighting the sharp angles of confusion etched there. I apologized for the awkwardness. He began straightening his bow tie. His words trailed off, uncertain how to frame the chasm of questions between us. "You didn't know Emily had a sister," I finished for him, keeping my voice neutral. David's eyes widened. "She mentioned a sister once, but said you dropped out of college after a semester, that you couldn't handle the pressure and disappeared." The old wound throbbed, but I didn't flinch. Years of boardroom negotiations had taught me to keep my face composed, even when bleeding internally. "I graduated summa cum laude," I said simply, while working 3 jobs. 3 jobs, his brow furrowed. Mornings at a coffee shop, evenings at the hospital reception desk, weekends at a call center. The memories flooded back, the bone-deep exhaustion, falling asleep over textbooks, the relentless push forward. I put myself through school part-time, no family support. Each word landed like a stone between us, ripples spreading outward. David's expression shifted from confusion to calculation, the surgeon's analytical mind reassessing everything he thought he knew. "Harvard?" he asked, naming his alma mater. I shook my head. Community college first, then State University. I couldn't afford Harvard after I discovered my college fund had been. I paused, choosing my words carefully. "Reallocated to Emily's education," he concluded, the pieces clicking into place. The ballroom around us blurred as memories surfaced of sleeping on Laura's lumpy couch. For 6 months, showering at the YMCA when Jamie's boyfriend kicked me out. Eating ramen for weeks straight to save for textbooks. The humiliation of asking professors for extensions because I couldn't stay awake after triple shifts. The hospital where I worked reception, I continued. That's where I met Nathan. He was a resident then. I remembered that night clearly, hunched over healthcare administration textbooks during my dinner break, exhaustion pulling at my eyelids. Nathan stopping at my desk, curious about the complex diagrams I'd sketched in the margins. "You understand Kellerman's patient flow theory?" he'd asked, surprised. "It's flawed," I'd replied without looking up. "The bottleneck isn't intake, documentation requirements between departments." He'd pulled up a chair and we talked until my break ended. The next day, he brought coffee and questions about my ideas for streamlining patient monitoring. Within months, we were developing the prototype that would become Health Tech's cornerstone product. David leaned forward. "And Health Tech, Emily mentioned you worked some office job." I couldn't help the small smile that touched my lips. "We started in our apartment 7 years ago. Last quarter's revenue was just under 400 million. Across the room, I spotted my parents flanking Emily like sentinels. Robert paced small circles, his face flushed with anger, while Patricia clutched Emily's arm, her knuckles white with tension. They cast frantic glances our way, whispering urgently. "They're going to try to separate us soon," I said calmly. David followed my gaze. They appeared concerned. Nathan approached us, phone discreetly positioned at his side. I recognized his strategy, documenting behavior while appearing casual. A protective measure we'd learned after years of navigating hostile business environments. "Everything all right here?" he asked, his surgeon's eyes performing a quick assessment of my well-being. "Just catching up," I replied, gratitude warming my chest. The man standing beside me, steady, brilliant, could see me as I am, not as my family's convenient narrative. On cue, Patricia bustled toward us, her voice pitched to Carrie. "David, there's someone from Atlanta General dying to meet you." Her eyes slid past me as if I were invisible, a familiar sensation. David stood his ground. In a moment, Patricia. "Sophia and I are having an important conversation." My mother's smile stiffened. Always the attention seeker, Sophia. She turned to the nearest cluster of guests. She's always been jealous of her sister's accomplishments. The statement hung in the air like smoke, acrid and choking. Several guests shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting between us. I remained seated, back straight, face composed. Nathan's hand rested on my shoulder, a silent anchor. When the bathroom door swung closed behind me, 20 minutes later, I wasn't surprised to find Emily already inside, reapplying mascara with trembling hands. Our eyes met in the mirror. "Why are you doing this to me?" she demanded, voice breaking on the final word. I washed my hands slowly, deliberately. Doing what exactly? Ruining my wedding, making David question everything. Tears streaked her carefully applied makeup. I'm not doing anything, I replied softly. I'm simply existing. Emily slammed her mascara wand onto the marble counter. You were supposed to stay gone. For the first time, I saw the fear behind her anger, the terror of a house of cards beginning to collapse. They told everyone you were a dropout, she continued, words tumbling out like a confession. That you couldn't handle responsibility, that you were... And yet here I am, I interrupted, handling quite a lot. When I emerged from the bathroom, my composure was intact. I returned to Nathan's side, to the warmth of his hand finding mine. Emily followed minutes later, makeup freshly applied, but something essential had shattered behind her eyes. I noticed it immediately, the subtle shift in the room. Wedding guests gradually drifting toward us, drawn by genuine curiosity. A neurosurgeon discussing patient monitoring innovations with Nathan. A hospital administrator slipping me her card. Your post-operative monitoring system reduced our complication rates by 30%, she told me. We'd love to explore expanding its implementation. David stood at my elbow, attentive to the conversation, asking insightful questions about health tech's technology. His new bride hovered at the periphery, unmoored. Father approached, shoulders squared for battle. David, he interrupted loudly, this is Emily's wedding. Let's focus on her accomplishments. The silence that followed filled the room like water, drowning everything else. All eyes flicked between David and Robert, then to Emily, whose smile stretched thin across her face. No one spoke, no one needed to. Sometimes silence holds more truth than any words could express. I handed my half-empty champagne flute to a passing server and checked my watch. We stayed long enough. Nathan caught my eye across the room where he was extricating himself from a conversation with an enthusiastic orthopedic surgeon. His slight nod confirmed we were on the same wavelength as always. Are we leaving now? Oliver tugged at my hand, hope brightening his eyes. Swimming pool time? Yes, buddy, just one more thing. I took a small cream-colored envelope from my clutch. Inside rested a certificate for health tech stock. Not life-changing money, but enough to make a statement. This is who I am now, not the desperate girl they threw away. Nathan joined us, his hand finding the small of my back. Ready? Almost. I scanned the room for David. The poor man deserved some courtesy on his wedding day, even if his in-laws didn't. We found him near the bar, watching Emily with an expression I recognized too well. The first hints of doubt creeping into what should be certainty. My sister worked the room with practiced charm, but now I noticed how she flinched slightly when medical terms entered the conversation, how quickly she redirected. We're heading out, I told David, offering the envelope. Congratulations again. He took it with genuine warmth. Thank you for coming, especially considering... His eyes drifted toward my parents who hovered nearby, like vultures circling wounded prey. I appreciated the invitation. I meant it. Closing this chapter mattered more than I realized. David leaned closer, voice dropping. I'd like to visit health tech sometime. Professionally, our eyes met, understanding passing between us without words. He knew, maybe not everything, but enough. My assistant will set it up. I offered my business card, aware of Emily watching us, her smile cracking at the edges like old porcelain. Mother glided toward us, social armor firmly in place. Sophia was always so driven, she told a nearby guest with calculated lightness. Of course, she had advantages we couldn't provide Emily. The blatant reversal of truth would have wounded me once. Now it was almost comical. What advantages were those, Mrs. Bennet? Nathan asked innocently. The 3 jobs while putting herself through night school or sleeping on friends' couches after you took her tuition money. Mother's face hardened, but a cluster of David's colleagues had drifted within earshot. She retreated a step, recalculating. Oliver looked up at me, confusion clouding his face. Aren't those people your family, Mom? The question silenced everyone within hearing distance. Simple, direct, unintentionally devastating. I knelt to his level. They're relatives, buddy. Family is different. Father chose this moment to approach, puffing up his chest like he did when I was young and easily intimidated. You can't just waltz back into our lives. And I'm not interested in waltzing back into anything. My voice cut through his bluster with quiet finality. I'm not here to expose you or reconcile with you. I built my own life, which is exactly what you forced me to do when you showed me the door. The image flashed unbidden, rain soaking through my jacket, the weight of my suitcase, the terrifying freedom of having nothing left to lose behind me. Oliver fidgeted with his bow tie again. Nathan rested his hand on our son's shoulder, steadying him the way he steadied me all those years ago, when I thought I'd drown. Thank you, I told my parents, causing them to blink in confusion. Thank you for not giving me a chance. You made me build my own. Mother's face contorted between rage and social preservation. For once, she found no words. I took Oliver's hand. Nathan fell into step beside us as we made our exit, unhurried, dignified, complete. No dramatic declarations, no tearful scenes, just the quiet power of walking away whole. Whispers followed us like gentle rain. But unlike that night 10 years ago, they didn't touch me. I'd built an umbrella of accomplishment that shielded me from their storms. In the lobby, Oliver broke free and spun with childish delight. Pool time. 10 minutes to change and I'll meet you there, Nathan told him, tousling his hair. As we crossed toward the elevators, I caught our reflection in the polished marble wall. A family of 3, solid and connected. Behind us, through the ballroom doors, I glimpsed David watching our departure, then turning back to his new bride with new questions in his eyes. Some weddings mark beginnings. This one marked an ending, the final release of expectations I never needed to fulfill, approval I no longer sought, and pain I refused to carry forward. Oliver punched the elevator button with enthusiastic determination. Up we go, yes, up we go indeed. Sunlight angled through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my office, casting long shadows across the polished concrete floors. 1 month had passed since Emily's wedding, but the memories still lurked in corners of my mind like a half-forgotten dream. I scanned the partnership proposal from Atlanta Memorial. A contract worth 8 figures sprawled across my desk. Health Tech's patient monitoring system reduced post-surgical complications by 37% in their trial run. Numbers didn't lie. Numbers didn't play favorites. My assistant Meredith's voice crackled through the intercom. Dr. David Thompson is here to see you. My pen stilled against paper. I hadn't spoken to my sister's husband since that night. Send him in. David entered like a man carrying invisible weight. His shoulders curled forward, suit jacket wrinkled at the elbows. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. Thank you for seeing me without an appointment. He stood awkwardly until I gestured toward the chair opposite my desk. Coffee? I offered. He shook his head. I can't stay long. I waited. Experience had taught me the power of silence. I've consulted with a lawyer about annulment possibilities. The words tumbled out like stones. Everything Emily told me was fabricated. She never attended Harvard. She never managed your parents' clinic. She's the receptionist. I absorbed this without surprise. The lies were always there, waiting for someone to notice. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and meant it. Your parents made her the face of their practice while they... His voice trailed off as he ran a hand through his disheveled hair. The billing practices at their clinic. They've been charging Medicare for procedures never performed, using outdated codes deliberately. Emily helped them do it. The revelation landed like a slap, not because it was shocking, but because it confirmed suspicions I buried years ago. I didn't mean to drag you back into this, David continued, but when I started investigating Emily's background, I found patterns, discrepancies. Your name kept appearing in old clinic records, then vanishing completely 10 years ago. The skyline beyond my window shimmered in summer heat. I built this view from nothing while they built their lives on fabrications. They used my college fund for Emily, I said simply. When I confronted them, they told me I wasn't Harvard. Material anyway. David winced. The irony is, I never wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to improve medical systems, make them more efficient, more accurate. You've done that, David said, glancing around my office. Health tech is transforming post-surgical care across the country. A silence stretched between us, comfortable in its honesty. The clinic is being investigated, he finally said. I submitted anonymous information to the proper authorities after discovering the extent of the fraud. They've been doing this for nearly 15 years. 15 years. Beginning right around the time I left for college. My phone buzzed with a text from Nathan, picking up Oliver early. Zoo Day, join us. A warmth spread through my chest. This was my real family now. What will you do? I asked David. He straightened his shoulders. File for annulment, cooperate with investigators, start over. He hesitated. I came to apologize for my unwitting role in reconnecting you with your past, and to ask, do you plan to get involved in the investigation? The question hung between us, heavy with implication. I could destroy them completely. One phone call from the CEO of health tech to the Medicare fraud. Investigators would accelerate everything. No, I said finally. I built my life separate from theirs. I intend to keep it that way. Relief washed across his face. Thank you for seeing me. After David left, I stood at my window, watching traffic flow 40 stories below. My phone vibrated with a voicemail notification. Emily's number, the third this week. Nathan called as I was gathering my things to meet them at the zoo. You sound tired, he said. David Thompson came to see me. The family clinic is under investigation for Medicare fraud. A pause. Are you okay? Yes. The answer surprised me with its truth. Are you going to get involved? I watched a red-tailed hawk circle the skyscrapers, riding thermals with effortless grace. I was thinking about what you said last week about how my success is already their greatest punishment. I stand by that, Nathan said, but it's your choice. My computer chimed with an incoming email. An attorney representing the Medicare Fraud Investigation Division requesting information about my time at Bennett Family Practice. Attached were documents requiring my testimony. They want me to testify. I told Nathan. What will you do? I considered the question. Part of me wanted to delete the email, refuse the request, let whatever happened to them happen without my fingerprints anywhere near it. Another part remembered patients who trusted them, elderly men and women whose Medicare benefits were stolen. I'll forward them copies of the clinic's original records from when I worked there. I decided. Nothing more, nothing less, just the facts. I'm proud of you, Nathan said. My phone buzzed again. Another voicemail from Emily. Her third today. The first one begged for money. The second threatened to tell Oliver the truth about his mother. I didn't need to hear the third. I pressed delete without listening. The small action, surprisingly final. Oliver wants to see the new tiger cubs, Nathan said, his voice a welcome anchor to my real life. Tell him I'm on my way. I gathered my bag, pausing at the door to look back at my office. The Atlanta Memorial contract waited on my desk. Another hospital ready to implement the system I built from nothing but determination and long nights. I closed the door behind me, leaving Emily's voicemail in digital oblivion where it belonged. Some debts can never be repaid. Some wounds never fully heal. But I've learned that moving forward doesn't require forgiveness. Sometimes it just requires letting go. The purple coneflowers bent toward sunlight. I pinched back another spent bloom, adding it to the collection in my palm. 6 months had passed since the wedding. 6 months of breathing easier, like finally stepping out of shoes that never quite fit. Oliver raced between the raised beds, his Batman cape fluttering behind him. Mom, can I water the tomatoes? Start with the peppers, I told him, pointing to the drooping leaves. They're thirsty today. He grabbed his small watering can, tongue poking out the corner of his mouth as he concentrated on not spilling. The mid-May sun warmed my shoulders through my t-shirt. No designer labels here, just comfort in my own space. Nathan appeared at the patio door. 3 glasses of lemonade balanced on a tray. Reinforcements, he called, descending the steps into our modest garden. His surgeon's hands, the same ones that performed delicate heart valve replacements, now passed lemonade to our son with exaggerated ceremony. Thank you, good sir, Oliver responded, with a wobbly bow that nearly spilled his drink. Nathan's eyes met mine over Oliver's head. The unspoken conversation passed between us. This is what matters. This garden, this boy, this life we built from nothing but determination and truth. The Johnson Hospital Board approved the patient monitoring system, Nathan said casually, though we both knew what this meant. The 5th major hospital chain to adopt health tech's technology this year alone. Thousands more patients who would recover safely because of what we created. That's number 5, Oliver announced proudly, counting on his fingers. Mom's helping all the sick people get better faster. I ruffled his hair, amazed at how he absorbed everything. That's the idea, buddy. The doorbell chimed from inside. Nathan raised an eyebrow. Expecting something? FedEx, probably. Those component samples from Switzerland. But when Nathan returned, his expression had shifted. He held a certified letter, the return address visible even from where I stood. Emily Bennett Thompson. My stomach tightened, the familiar knot I thought I'd finally untangled. I'll be in my office. The envelope sat on my desk for 17 minutes while I finished reviewing quarterly projections. Nathan leaned against the doorframe, silent support. When I finally slid it open, a single sheet of cream-colored stationery slid out, covered in Emily's careful handwriting. Sophia, The clinic closed last month. Not because of anything you did, because of everything Mom and Dad did. The investigation found billing irregularities going back 15 years. David left me. He said he couldn't build a life with someone he couldn't trust. He was right. I'm not writing to ask for money. I know better now. I'm writing because I need to tell you that you were never the problem. I was raised to believe your intelligence threatened mine. Your independence undermined my security. I believed them when they said cutting you off was necessary. I was wrong, they were wrong, and I'm sorry. Emily. Nathan didn't ask what it said. He waited until I folded the letter and placed it back in its envelope. "What will you do?" he asked. "Nothing dramatic," I answered, turning to my computer. I opened a document, typed for several minutes, then printed a single page. I slid it into a health tech envelope with the letter I'd written. 2 weeks later, I stood at the edge of the American Medical Technology Conference in Boston, watching my team demonstrate our latest innovations to a crowd of healthcare professionals. The health tech booth drew attention, our reputation preceding us now. A flash of movement caught my eye. Someone in pale blue scrubs near the education pavilion. Emily, her hair pulled back, in a simple ponytail, listened intently to a speaker discussing entry-level medical coding certification. Our eyes met across the crowded exhibition hall. No gasps this time, no drama, just quiet recognition. She held the health tech internship application I sent her, clutched like a lifeline. I offered a small nod, not forgiveness exactly, but acknowledgement. She returned it, eyes bright with something that might be determination. We didn't approach each other. Some relationships are completed, not continued. That evening, I finalized the paperwork for the Bennett First Generation Medical Scholarship. Not named for my parents, but reclaiming my birth name for something better. 20 students without family support would receive full tuition and mentorship next fall. Back home, I knelt in our garden again, digging small holes for new seedlings. Oliver helped, his small hands patting soil around tender roots. "Some plants don't grow well next to others," I explained, showing him how to space the seedlings. "They need their own space to thrive." "Like people?" he asked, surprisingly perceptive. "Smart boy," I whispered, kissing his forehead. "Yes, like people." The sun slanted golden across our yard. Through the kitchen window, I saw Nathan preparing dinner, moving easily through the space we'd created together. I pressed another seed into the dark earth, covering it gently. "Some roots you're given, others you get to choose."